Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome back to Houselights, our director discussion show here on the Nerd Party Network. Today, we're completing the House of Scott with the works of Tony Scott and his final film, 2010's Unstoppable. As Denzel is back yet again, will this action film carry the same weight as his previous outings, or will it derail? I'm Darren Yardmaster Moser. It's all the railroad puns today. I'm joined again by my friends, veteran railroader John Mills and yellow vest Tristan Riddell. Gentlemen, start your engines.
I feel like that's good casting, Darren. I really do. I think you got it there.
Just because I'm the youngest person here doesn't mean
no. That's exactly why you're the yellow vest. That's exactly why.
It's my haircut. Is why I got the Denzel role. He and I had the same haircut.
That's true. Denzel was rocking the bald look in this film.
Rocking it a little bit better than me.
He's like, you know what? I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
That Equalizer money is saying, hey, you gotta
right. He's got to stay in Equalizer shape.
And it's not a surprise for Chris Pine because 2010. So this is right after Star Trek. So this is his after Star Trek movie. Really, he's on the rise.
Yeah. This is pre Wonder Woman and everything. This is he's parlaying everything.
The Guardian, I remember that one.
Yep.
Also was a good about Coast Guard. He plays a Coast Guard guy. Or maybe I'm mixing that up. Sorry. There's another one where that's
Kevin Costner and Ashton Kutcher was in The Guardian.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There is another one where he's like on a boat, and I just got the title wrong, but yeah, I don't have his whole film.
That's okay. Now, one thing I realize we've never done, like this is episode 169, and one thing we've never done in the history is talk about the movie's plot beforehand. Like, because we always assume, like, if you're listening to this, like, you know the plot of the movie.
But, yeah.
I think so. No, I think it is. But I just want to say it this one time. Like, okay, Please. So Unstoppable, Tony Scott, 2010, a runaway train carrying a cargo of toxic chemicals puts an engineer and its conductor in a race against time. They're chasing the runaway train in a separate locomotive and need to bring it under control before it derails on a curve and causes a toxic spill that will decimate a town. There you go. I don't know. I felt the need to do that. I just did. And this was based off of a real life event. And I looked it up and it was like, okay, everybody, it kind of happened, but like they connected at 25 miles per hour and the guy hopped on the train when it was going 11 miles per hour.
Yeah. Just a little slower.
A little bit less dramatic in real life. But at the same time,
though, it's a movie. It's like it would have been so anticlimactic if he just sauntered over and hopped on.
Hold on a second. You're telling me that Tony Scott, with his action sensibilities, came in and it was like, yeah, great story, bro. Now let's magnify everything by 1 billion and see what happens with that. And it's like, yeah, I mean, because the thing is that's an interesting premise for a movie, but is a terrible movie to watch, right? Where it's like, oh, look, It's easy to solve this problem. Well, cool, guys. That's great. I don't know.
I'm so glad that you actually brought that up. And Darren, I'm totally stealing the opener from you, but it
sure, yellow vest.
So obviously it's amped up. It's a Hollywood film. And I really, really appreciate it when films start it with saying inspired by true events, not based on real events.
Right.
There's a really important difference between based and inspired. This was truly inspired by real events. Like the real one happened in Ohio, and it was totally slow by comparison. And there was actually a curve that they had to worry about.
So
that actually did
sevens. Happen. It's crazy different.
But one thing that so like John, you talked about how, would you, like Darren and John, you talked about like, would that be satisfying if you had that kind of, where you just kind of saunter over? When I finish a movie, I love going on Letterboxd and seeing what people say about it. And I saw a lot of 5 stars and I saw a lot of 1 stars. I was like, oh wow, this is interesting. And so I clicked on the 1 stars, and so many people were like it was so predictable. There's a runaway train. There's 2 guys. The 2 guys stop the runaway train. Any questions? And I'm like, what is wrong with you?
What did you want them both to die and like the town to be destroyed? Like, is that the ending you wanted?
Yes,
Seriously.
that's actually the ending those people wanted. That is exactly I will die on that hill. Those people expose themselves as the ones that are dissatisfied if the train doesn't like go out, and like Chris Pine has a tearful thing where he's like, I'm so sorry, honey, I truly love you. And like just as the train hits, because he has to strap himself onto the front of it to try to,
Tell him to go watch Rogue One. Just
yeah, something like
that'll fill your cup right there.
Yeah. Not everything needs to be The Godfather Part 2. You can walk out with a spring in your step every so often. It's fine.
But
it's fine.
But speaking of Star Wars, it's just when I see stuff like that, it makes me think like, okay, so like when you were watching Star Wars 77, like were you pissed off that Luke Skywalker made the shot at the end? Like were you pissed off because
I don't know.
You're like, I totally called it. Like Luke Skywalker, like of course.
And even in the meta, thinking about it, if it's inspired by real events, most likely they're real events that ended up happy, because no one's really going to make a giant movie about like, remember when like that town got wiped off the map from the runaway train? They're not going to make a movie about that.
Yeah, I would hesitate. Well, they'll give it some time. I think it takes a lot longer for that story to be told, because there are incidents where it is dramatic enough, but it's like Silkwood dramatic enough where you're like, yeah, we got to let this lay for a little while.
After the inspired by event.
Yeah, that's not enough for a tragedy.
You got to be 20 years. It's got to be 20 years.
Yeah. You got to give it some time.
But yes, well, let me take control, put my pin back in of this runaway train car. But this is also an interesting one for us, because I had seen this one before, but neither of you had. And Tristan, you said you shared your after action plan of seeing what other people thought. John, what did you think before you even saw it?
I know that I missed this movie specifically because we had 2 children by that point, and an action movie about a runaway train. I'm just brass tacks. Doesn't matter who was directing it. Like George Lucas would have gotten me out of my house to go see it. But at that point, it was like, to the point of the 1-star people, I wasn't sitting there saying, oh, that movie's going to suck. They're both going to live. I was like, I'll get around to it eventually. And I just never got really around to it overall, which is kind of odd because it seems to have some pretty positive vibes from the critics and everything. And so I never heard bad things about the movie. It's just, everybody knows how it is, especially nowadays with your watch list.
Blockbuster had been around in 2010, because it wasn't.
Yeah,
this probably would have caught your eye on the shelf, but it just slipped through otherwise.
Yeah. This would have been like look, they have their guaranteed wall is empty. Let's grab Unstoppable. That's fine.
Oh, Tony Scott. Oh, Denzel.
Yeah, okay.
That's a winning combination. I've seen that before.
Exactly.
Well, see that's the thing, though, is that like John, I was kind of the same way, where like I saw the ads for it and I was just like, oh, it's a runaway train. It's just kind of like, even though it has Denzel, Tony Scott, and Chris Pine, it still wasn't enough to draw me in. Now, this had a budget of $68 million, and it had almost $168 million in box office. That's $100 million return, not including marketing costs, but like it more than doubled its budget. So I mean, this movie made money, and yeah. And so I was confused that this isn't a bigger thing.
However, what I'll point out is 2010, where now the Marvel engine is just warming up.
Oh, you're right.
And so this is the point where $168 million doesn't sound like as much to suits anymore. This is where we start to lose perspective.
200,
right?
250.
Where's my Iron Man money? Where's my even Louis Leterrier's Incredible Hulk money? Where is
the Chris Pine train movie didn't make $1 billion? It's like, okay, where are you living on?
Wait, which Chris are we talking about?
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
I thought this was Hemsworth and Denzel. Oh,
yes.
No, it's absolutely a good point of the changing trajectory of film at the time. And I say I've seen it. I'm pretty sure I did not see it in theaters. I just happened to catch it like a couple years later and have watched it several times. It's definitely an enjoyable rewatch. I mean, shocker, he still saves the train every single time I rewatch it. But no, I'm glad you had that idea, Tristan, of kind of talking about the plot a little bit, as we do assume often that our listeners wouldn't listen to a movie review show without actually listen. But hey, there's some crazy people out there. Who knows? But yeah, so this one, it's interesting because, I mean, I kind of joked about it at the beginning of this episode in my intro about, an action film with Denzel. It's a very different action film. It's what do they call it? Man versus nature kind of thing.
Nature.
It's a different kind of, unstoppable force. So there's no guns, 0 guns in this movie.
That's not true.
That's not true.
They're guns. They try to shoot the off switch.
Okay. Which is highly stupid.
Oh, it's
the
incredible.
Reporter is right next to the gas can. Oh,
it's incredibly stupid for another reason. In
That's why I
that
blacked it out.
It's totally movie logic sort of thing. Because my first thought while they're sitting there shooting at it, I'm like, not one bullet ricocheted and clipped anybody or hit a tire.
I'm like
the close range like that, and the gauge and the firing of I'm like, somebody got one like lost an ear here or something like that. So
well, and then a little later, and with the derailment, all those cops are like, all the cars are like right there. I'm like, man, you deserve to have your car totaled. Why would you park next to a derailing train? There should be like a 5-block radius of nobody. But hey,
Well, I will also say that while everybody makes fun of the save the cat trope and everything, when it hit the horse, when the accident happened and the horse trailer was hit by the truck and everything, I'm glad they spent the time to save the horse, because horses are majestic creatures and I love them. And when the car hit it, I actually was watching it alone, and my first words were, "Oh, that horse is dead." And I was so happy that they made sure to show me that the horse was okay, because I would have been so angry about that, like disproportionately angry. Like the cop, like, yeah, dummy, you parked next to the track, but the horse didn't do anything to deserve
horse
anything.
didn't do anything.
Didn't do anything to deserve what was going on there. And it is interesting because even with Tony Scott's over the top action sensibility, he, as a seasoned director, comes in and he's like, and we got to make sure the horse is okay. We got to make sure we show the horse is okay.
I think you hit on it, though, John, of what I was kind of leaning into, because it's the tension in this movie. And really, the tension is all about what is placed in front of the train. The train is a constant. And so we place a horse trailer with a horse in it. First, we place a train with like the proverbial, school bus full of kids. It's the train full of kids on a field trip. And the guy's like sweating, like trying to get in that siding, and you're like, oh boy.
And, okay, we need to give props to that engineer, because he could have slowed down. He could have tried to stop
that.
But the thing is, though, is that like, because he didn't slow down, because he stayed steady, he saved all of those kids. Now, granted, this is, of course, an invention of the movie, but still, like, this morning, I ran out of time to watch it, and I was like, I gotta watch this movie this morning, guys. Like, everybody leave Daddy alone. And my 2-year-old would not leave me alone, and I was like, fine, screw it, you're gonna watch it with me. And so we're watching Unstoppable together, and then we get to that scene where they're going, where the train full of kids and the runaway train are going at each other. And I pause it. I'm like, you know what? I have no idea how rough this movie's going to get. You're not going to watch this anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
Fair assumption. If you hadn't seen it, that could have been a really bad moment. But yeah, so we're putting different things, And I think he does a great job.
What those bandits called? The animals that look like bandits, raccoons. There was a raccoon. There was one raccoon that ran across the train tracks while the train was coming, and you just know the editor was licking his lips like.
Well, we had a lot of the tropes. We had the guy leaning out of a car door doesn't see the pole coming and the car door gets sheared off. Check, and
I just want my kids back storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
totally. That's that made me think about some of Tony Scott's previous works, and one consistent line of thought that we've had is action movie tropes, but you don't mind them.
Right. Because it's a decent movie.
Because it's a decent movie and you have Tony Scott on, at the helm. He knows how to take and use the trope without making it eye-rolly, at least in my opinion. One thing that we really talked about was in Man on Fire, where that easily could have been a tropey 80s style action film, but it had a lot of depth.
Could have been like Commando or something.
Yeah,
which is like dripping in satire. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this one took you right up to the edge, but then brought it back.
Yes, and I think it's also the way they tell the story of Chris Pine going through stuff is important, and I think it lends into Tony Scott's style of approaching character and the way the actor plays it, is that there isn't one big clunky expository moment. It's the way real conversations happen throughout where somebody doesn't necessarily want to talk about it. They get prodded a little bit to say, hey, it's not your business. And then, okay, fine, I'll tell you a little bit here. And then the other person, like, there's a real give and take. And this is where I'll give Denzel Washington a lot of credit, especially working with Tony Scott. I think that Denzel Washington works really well and finds the chemistry with Chris Pine to make that conversation feel authentic as opposed to clunky. Just like I think that Denzel Washington's strengths as an actor make the discussion about his daughters working at Hooters a charming, funny one where he's busting Chris Pine's chops. He's like, you're blushing. That's okay. I know. Like you get the sense that Denzel Washington really exists, that this character really exists, that this is a real person because he's having real human interaction and reaction with stuff. And that's why you don't, to your point, Tristan, that's why you don't mind the trope, because it's done the way that real people would do it if it were not a trope, And
also, like, to piggyback off of that, like when he calls his daughters, when they after
Those
the point of no
moments.
return, that felt like a very real moment, because he didn't say like, I'm so sorry that we haven't been in contact, like we haven't been right since your mother died, and I vowed that I would do X, Y, and Z.
I love her. Gotta go work. Close the phone.
Yeah, that's it. That's all it is. Just saying, like, just like you can tell that something's wrong. She knows something's wrong. He's like, just tell your sister I love her too. Then boom, click phone.
A lot of flip phones. In this movie. Like everybody had a flip phone. But
speaking of which, the contact photos in the flip phones were the worst examples. They were clearly headshots or taken at a scene of the movie.
Yep. Because you know how you got a headshot into your phone back then, guys? You took a picture with your phone on your 2 megapixel. If you were lucky, it just looked like trash.
Why didn't they just have them take selfies? I don't understand. But that's what they should have done.
Even the rail worker who set the train off, his like headshot on the news looked like immaculate. It was like the nicest headshot that we'd ever seen. Okay, little quibbles, but
little quibble.
So you have the train going on, but like you said, Tristan, a lot of real moments, and it does get a little more dialogue-y as it goes. But that's not bad because they've earned it, because they've had all those little conversations about, hey, get off your phone. Hey, we got to do our job. Obviously in the last third, there is that kind of not exposition dump, but they're kind of, he swings around and is like, oh, hey, well, we have time now. Why don't you tell me, what that was all about? And that feels earned. If they had that conversation within 5 minutes of meeting each other, we would have been like, why are you info dumping on us? And it wouldn't have felt good.
Yeah. Yes. And like you feel the urge from a writer's perspective or from a director's perspective for Chris Pine's character to just unload on him, saying like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the phone so much. I got this thing with my wife and the, the restraint and everything.
People
like
are fairly private in their real lives. Like not everybody like loves to dump on other people that they've just met.
Yeah, that's a movie thing or a weirdo thing.
Right. Well, because you need a character
Yes.
to give
Yes, it
exposition in a
is.
movie because you can't go inside their head. So it's just a nature of the beast.
I appreciated this exposition. I didn't mean to cut you off there, Darren. I appreciated this exposition, but at the same time felt a little weird about it because in the opening, like we see Chris Pine and he's sleeping on a couch, but then we don't quite know where he's sleeping, but then he looks through the crack in a door and he sees someone, and then but they don't establish how he's looking at him, and so like they don't establish the geography of the space.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of is like, okay, is that his husband? Is he crashing?
The geography of the face is Chris Pine is barely wearing anything, and that is what that shot is for. That shot is
and they
shot
cut
is
on the
not
crotch,
for geometry.
like
yeah, they do.
boom,
Of course they do.
cut on the crotch. But in it, regardless,
No, but you're right.
But like on top of that, like it was just kind of weird. And also, why is the guy that he's staying with, who's a friend, why is he taking the calls from the lawyer? Why isn't the lawyer talking to Chris Pine? If Chris Pine can take a call from his friend, why isn't he taking a call from his lawyer?
That's a great question, and I will defer to the legal experts in the audience to know if there's a reason why that would happen. Outside of possibly that there's like I was trying to work with that to your point to be like maybe the friend has a relationship with the lawyer, like the lawyer's like. You know, like he's
It's kind of
involved
small
in some
town
way.
vibes. Like,
Yeah.
you know, where you start to
I've been there.
names.
I've been there.
You
I've been
know.
there. Yeah.
It's possible. It's one of those things where I think that, you know, just like the internal geography of a space, you know, you go back to True Romance, we had the same sort of complaint with Tony Scott with that. I don't know that it's always been I don't know that it's always been his Achilles heel. I won't go far as to say that, but obviously it's something that, you know, it comes up every so often. But in terms of that personal relationship, I think it was just because it was a way to deliver exposition without it being clunkier or having him take more phone calls and stuff like that. Because I think that if we go to a certain point where he's taking more hidden phone call, you know, like, I don't know, I'm trying to explain it away here. I concede it as a flaw, but it's one where it moves quickly enough that it's like, you know,
no,
sure.
It's not like
Well,
a make or
that's the
break
B-
for me.
It's
Yeah.
the B
Oh, no.
plot. You know,
Yeah.
it's the exposition because the A plot, guys, is the giant train that's running away that growled like a tiger every time we saw it on screen. It sure was ferocious.
Well,
Speaking of
I'm
tropes,
also
I
willing,
love that trope. I love the trope
it
of
too.
adding an
Like,
animal
this thing
noise
has
to a
power.
machine.
Rawr, as it goes
well,
by.
I'm also willing to bet that there were enough rewrites along the way that they, you know, probably that guy was there for a certain thing, and then like the part or the plot
Could
line
be.
winds up getting trimmed down because this is only 98 minutes or something
98
like
minutes.
that.
It's
Which-
really short.
That's really, really short for a Tony Scott movie.
But if it
Like,
was,
I feel
if it
like
was
that's
2
not really
minutes
territory
longer,
to go into.
it would have been too long.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh,
agree.
yeah. This was a
Absolutely
98-minute
agree.
story, and I'm glad it was a 98-minute movie.
Yes. 98 at most. I would say that maybe you could have even shaved a couple of minutes off of this. Where specifically? Just truncate a couple of
you
moments.
do have to establish a lot of people. Like, you have to establish Connie. Like, she gets a fair amount of screen time as well.
True.
She's not a bit player. She's having Sam Witwicky's dad. I know the actor has a
Yes,
name, but that's what I
yes.
know him as. Fighting
Talking about
Transformers.
Kevin
and screwing
Dunn?
over the little guy. Okay,
I-
Kevin Dunn. Yes.
Kevin Dunn, you Philistine.
You person. Look, Kevin Dunn slotting into a role that he's played a billion other times. Like this is, and I'm not taking anything away from him, but like this type of role, if I'm casting it, I'm like, yeah, get Kevin Dunn. He knows
Yeah,
he knows how to shout this line.
Just get Kevin Dunn on the phone. Just have him show up, okay? He doesn't need any prep time.
Yeah.
And also, speaking of,
He
I
doesn't
mean,
need a script.
I keep saying, speaking of tropes, but again, the CEO on the golf course,
Oh, gosh.
like,
well, what's that
It's-
going to impact our bottom line, Bob? Well, let me tell you, it's going to be 30% down.
home from for investors, bottom line, from golf game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
No, you're right. Yeah, well, I mean, maybe, gosh, I'm looking right now. There's like 3 Kevin actors in this movie. There's Kevin Dunn as Oscar. There's Kevin Corrigan as the inspector guy. And then Kevin Chapman as Bunny, a railroad operations dispatcher. Man, a lot of Kevins. But I think the unsung hero, gosh, this guy was chewing the scenery, but so much fun. Lou Temple as Ned. Ponytail, giant red truck. That looks like just a fun. I don't know if he really existed in real life. I don't need to know. I don't want to know. I want to imagine that this guy exists and just loves peeling out in his giant outrigged red truck every chance he gets. It was so fun.
Well, and he had worked with Tony Scott on Domino. So,
okay.
Tony Scott bringing back somebody that he's worked with before again.
Was it?
Well, he was I think he was like an EMT or something like that in Man on Fire. I can't remember. So like he's been in smaller roles before.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was the lack of ponytail. I didn't catch him in the
when he shows up at the end and he says, he's like, hey, like I need a police escort. Or even at the very end, like I thought he was going rogue. Like I thought he was trying to be a hero. Okay. And like
it was really
because
just to
they
catch
didn't
up with the train, right? Because they kind of don't reveal what it was for until the very, very end.
Right. And he says that Connie sent him, and then that cop is just like, wait, Connie, and everything like that. And so it was weird because we didn't see that conversation between Rosario Dawson and Lou Temple. So it was one of those, it wasn't a Deus Ex Machina, but at the same time, like they could have had like 5 seconds of Connie saying, get down there.
Right. Yeah, it's... Yeah, and then there's some interesting characters. Like, again, you have the inspector who knows a lot about explosives. It's like very handy to have. Again, I don't know if this character or person existed in real life or if they're just for the plot to move it along. But overall, now on a little bit of a negative, there are definitely some shots where the train's rolling through and you're like, it's not going 60 miles an hour. Like I know what a 60 mile an hour like car vehicle looks like. And that's like 20, it's obviously not going that fast, but I don't really care because it's like, they got to work with what footage they're shooting and you don't want to not be safe with an actual train. So it wasn't a huge deal, but you could notice it at times.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. When you have that many train shots in a movie, you got to get some variety, and you got to.
They can't all be raccoon shots.
Yeah.
Well, what is actually interesting is because you're, especially 2010, you're in the era where you easily could have had a CG train going down the tracks. Where somebody would have said, you know what, we can control this. We just get a shot of a clean track.
Maybe there was a shot, but I didn't notice any sort of CG train.
No,
in this.
But that's what I'm saying is you have that choice, or you have what I would say is the Tony Scott choice, which is we're going to shoot this and we're going to swoop in with helicopters and we're going to edit the crap out of this so that you get the sense of the train. Like we're going to disorient you. I will actually offer that there are a couple of moments that fall flat as a result, because it's so obviously manipulated. What you were just saying, like you can tell,
right?
But then there are certain shots where like it cuts to like over, side, front,
under,
over, under, right? It's like at that point, it's like the magician getting a little too showy, and you're like, listen, I was playing along. Okay, I know you're not really sawing anybody in half here. You don't need to like have the screaming. Okay, let's just agree that I know how this trick works here.
There's one shot where the camera is right above the right wheel of the train. And I think it's a key moment where it's not going to get diverted. And so it follows and stays on the main line. And I'm like, that's a really nice shot because it's literally where I would be following. And that's true. Like, how many ways can you shoot a train? Like, there's a lot of times where I'm pretty sure, I mean, I don't know exactly how they did it, but it's almost like they had an arm. Like they mounted it on the roof of the train, had an arm coming out so they could swing it around looking through all the glass, because every shot of Denzel and Chris talking, it was moving around the cab, outside the cab, looking through the glass constantly over and over and over. I'm like, okay, you got that rig, use it.
That was one criticism that I saw online. I saw more than a few people say they want to take the dolly cam away from Tony Scott in this movie.
Fair. It's fair. I would say that
fair, but I didn't mind
It's
it.
noticeable. I'll just say that. It's not good or bad. It's
those
just,
times where it crossed, there were times where it sort of got a little excessive. But the thing is, excessive is Tony Scott's calling card. All of these movies that we've talked about, right? There is always something excessive about it. It's just different levels of excessive and whether we think it works particularly well. I look at this and I can see the same guy that did Man on Fire calming down a little bit. Just like, we hit Man on Fire and then we move forward and we can clearly say, I can see the same director working here. The interesting thing to me is I think if you look at Man on Fire and then you look backward toward Beverly Hills Cop 2, you can see the director evolving to that point. And then you move from Man on Fire forward, you can see a director refining and trying to control. And Darren, as you mentioned at the beginning, this is his last film. And I would have given anything to see where he went next, because I think that Unstoppable, you see him getting full, it's the worst word. Right. You see him refining it. Like Man on Fire is his big magnum opus, over the top, look at everything I can do. And then you see him move forward and it's that guy learning how to contain it, learning how not to go all the way up to 11 and still make it really visually interesting. And I would have given anything to see his next project after this, because I think you get somebody who's completely comfortable with all of the tools at that point. And, that's just where I go with it mentally.
Well, you even had a little bit of a dash of the low shutter speed in the very, very beginning as they're kind of establishing the train. But it was just enough to be like, oh, that's the train I need to focus on, And obviously it's smart that it's the one with all the sevens, and it's the giant red one. Like they make it really clear, all the other trains we see are like blue and gray. And it's like, no, it's the hot rod red one is the one that got away.
And let me offer that goes back to a criticism that a lot of people leveled at the original Top Gun, where the tail numbers would get mixed up in the editing. And we know all of the different technical reasons for that. And people will be like, oh, this plane is here and this plane is there and that sort of thing. Making that choo-choo train red and a 777.
Yeah.
That is somebody who got burned by that criticism. It was like, fine, I'm going to make it super clear which train we're looking at, guys.
I think that's such a great pull. It's so true. Even though it was, at that time, it would have been 24 years ago, 24 years prior. That like people who are creators or artists, they don't let go of those kind of criticisms.
Nope. No, they do not.
Well, and nowadays, we have the CG technology to paint over those tail fins and fix it if we really wanted to.
Easily.
But that doesn't. Now you even see where, I remember on television a lot, you would have all the screens would just be green. Like they would replace all the monitors so that countdown timers and everything would always hit its mark because it was done in post. And, we know how it is. But yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, 777. It's an unlucky number.
I absolutely love that the two dipshits that caused this to happen were played by Ethan Suplee and TJ Miller.
Yeah.
Oh, great casting.
You see them and you're like, well, this isn't going to go well for you boys. You just know. They're like the way they're yawing on the radio, and he's watching them with his binoculars. Like, I see you guys sitting right here. You're not doing your job. Get up and do your job.
And this was before Ethan Suplee got jacked.
Right. He's slimming down in his middle of his transformation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's good to have these characters because of the fact. Because the thing is, this is another thing that makes this an atypical actioner sort of thing like this, where other directors They focus on Chris Pine's family life and Denzel Washington's family life and those sorts of things. And that's where we really get our drama. But there is a very conscious, criticism of corporate culture and
it's not
class culture. And nor should it be. I love the fact that
Ageism.
They really lean into it. And they're like, they throw these actual things that would be real factors in the real world for these real people. And up to and including, you talk about, the CEO on the golf course sort of thing. But the guy sitting there, and the only threat he has is you're fired. You're all fired if you don't get this done. And I love the moment where Denzel Washington says, yeah, you already fired me. What do I care?
Yeah.
And
you have no power here. It's
honestly, the most liberating thing in the world is if you work at a dysfunctional place, being able to say to somebody, if they walked in the door today and they said leave, my reaction would be, okay. That's the ultimate power. And that's what I love, that they give that to Denzel Washington's character, for him to play that moment to say, I don't care. Fine. What are you going to do? Fire me twice? Go to hell.
I love that moment when he says he's like, I'm not doing it for you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many, there's a reason why Denzel is such a freaking movie star.
Mm-hmm.
He's so good at what he does. And I know that he's gotten some criticism in his career for being like a self-insert, like he only accepts movies where he can be Denzel. And to them, I say, screw you. But in this movie, like he's sitting in a cab, just talking with Chris Pine, like 90% of the time, or talking on the radio. But he plays these lines so well. He makes it interesting. His face makes it interesting. The way that he delivers the line. I know that I'm just explaining acting to you guys, but it's just in lesser hands. This movie is nowhere near as interesting.
Well, I think there's also an interesting thing that Tony Scott does this, and then you can sort of contrast it with Crimson Tide, where he's smart enough to know I can't ever let the audience off of this submarine. But he knows here I have to let the audience off of this train because of what you're talking about. You can get away with not letting anybody off the submarine because there are so many characters on the submarine. You cannot trap the audience with these two guys for 98 minutes. You have to go out and see Rosario Dawson and see Kevin Dunn and see all of these people outside working toward this common goal. And I think it would be really interesting to do one of those cheesy double features to say Crimson Tide, Unstoppable, same director, and look at how he uses his same toolbox to build tension in two completely different environments, but to the same effect. I think it'd be an interesting experiment.
And the train, it's really like a shark. It surfaces occasionally but he uses it to his advantage that we don't know where it is. Like it'd be so easy to be like, oh yeah, we have all of our trains with GPS trackers and we know exactly where it's like, no, you don't know exactly where it is. You don't know what school it's flying by at 70 miles an hour right now, or, what's going on. And so, yeah, I mean, so if you, obviously we spend more time in, I don't remember the number, but 1206 there. We spend more time with that train than we do with the speeding train, obviously, because nobody's on that train. That'd be very boring. It's like we're in the cab, just here we go,
right
to another intersection. But yeah, I think again, like you've said, both of you, he's really Tony Scott is really in his craft right now of amount of time given to characters, drawing another great performance out of Denzel, peppering in a lot of great background, even the very, very ending, the curtain call credits with the three what happened later's. Like, I feel like that was necessary to kind of just pin it up.
Yes.
Like you could have done it without that. It was like, hey, he got his job back and then retired with benefits. It doesn't say if Chris Pine kept his job or did something else, but it just focuses on he's still married and they're having another kid. And then he's like, and then this, Connie got the bad executive's job, which again, I don't know if that's true, but we'd like to think it is. And,
Dewey.
And Dewey is sort of working in fast food, which is just the perfect, just right enough to say.
And to your point where you're talking about with the that ending and everything, it would be so easy for somebody, especially of Tony Scott's stature, to approach this as a paint by numbers. I'm just going to get my paycheck and walk away. I don't care, whatever. But what you were saying, Darren, where this is somebody accessing his entire toolbox, this shows, I think, a real professionalism and a real love of craft on the part of a director who refuses to phone it in. Even on the movies where I didn't love Deja Vu, but he wasn't phoning it in. He was doing the best he could. Or you look at The Last Boy Scout. You guys liked it even less than I did. That's not a guy phoning it in. That's a guy in a very difficult circumstance, but he still gives what he can. And I think that this is another movie where there are a lot of directors where they would have shown up. They wouldn't have cared about anything except, look, let's just shoot it. Let's get it done in 80 days. And then we'll put it in post. I'm going to go to my next project and be done. I get the sense of a director who actually showed up and did what he can't not care about what's being done on set.
It would have been an HBO film, right? It would have been it would have been something of that caliber if they just showed up and did it. And also, like, a different director would have made this 2 hours and 10 minutes and filled it with their backstories before they even got to the train yards.
Or there would have been another family in right near the curve, and we're constantly cutting to them trying to evacuate and getting away. We didn't see any of that. Like it, because it was kind of there's no point. Like, it's going to be such a bad disaster if that thing tips that it's all gone.
Although I'll give Tony Scott credit for having the herd of dumbasses on top of the building that the cops are like, we're asking you to leave for your own safety. And it's like, no, those guys would be there. They would be.
Yeah. And they're all flipping off the cops.
It's like, well, you can't do anything about them.
Well, I love in the newscast when they say that, like, when they show a display of the curve and they're like, and then there's the fuel depot right here at the curve. And why did we build it there? Not for a single moment did I ever think that was unbelievable. Like, I'm like, of course. I mean, that I want to know if that's real life, because I totally believe that some city planner would have done that. It's just
yes, 100% some city planner did that. I don't know what Stanton, Pennsylvania looks like, but I'm willing to bet that if I go and I'm willing to bet that I'm going to read an article where the real life story that this is based on is that quietly afterward they moved where the curve was, or they moved where the tanks were, or something like that. Where it is like they didn't call attention to it, but they realized that this was an idiot mistake back then. I think that
I just looked it up, and Stanton is not a real place in Pennsylvania.
Scranton is.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, there's a nice paper company there.
That's what I kept thinking they were saying. Yeah. Well, but sorry, I just needed to. I Googled it right now. I was like, is that real? No.
Well, and it's also interesting because, like as we're talking about Tony, I get the vibe in this movie, and it's good that. And I don't know, maybe the statement isn't necessary, but he's not making this movie to make the next franchise series of runaway train movies. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going into it being like, this is going to put me on the map for that sweet, sweet Marvel money or something like that. And I know we're just getting into that Marvel era in this time, but I kind of miss when movies were like this. It's like, it's just inspired by events. It's fun, but you're not trying to create a cinematic universe out of it. You're not trying to, cross over with Crimson Tide because the same builder built the train who built the sub or something crazy like that.
The sad thing is this movie would have been on Netflix today.
oh, this totally would have been a Netflix movie.
And
Yeah,
I
but-
hate to say that out loud.
Well, I do, like, I'm constructing it the way that you're talking about, Darren, where like there's a stinger at the end of the credits. Mr. Barnes, I'd like to talk to you about the Amtrak initiative, right? And it's like,
Right.
dun, dun, dun. It's like he becomes a roving train fixer or something like that.
Who can stop this train? Captain
One
Kirk
man.
and Malcolm X
Yeah.
That's right.
and Ahsoka over the phone.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty
Yep.
much. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Well, as this train is heading towards the curve,
I want to say
Tristan.
one thing before we go, is that we keep talking about like we're Marvel era and everything like that. Like Iron Man came out in 2008. Another film came out in 2008, and that's The Dark Knight. And I do believe that Gregson Williams was heavily influenced by Hans Zimmer's work in The Dark Knight in 2008 when he made this film.
I'd say that's
Holy
fair.
crap.
I'd say that's fair.
I could have sworn that Zimmer made this. Like, as I was watching the movie and I was listening to the music, I was like, man, Zimmer's really repeating himself here.
I'd say that's a fair assessment of the score. Yeah. But the funny thing is we haven't really talked about how, I mean, you talked about in one of our episodes about how the production company, there was a stable of people, and it's like Gregson Williams' name comes up so much. And honestly, it's a little disappointing how, to your point, how derivative some of this sounds. But at the same time, your spot music sometimes really influences how things sound. And it's like, okay, but there's nothing about this score that's really gonna light it up.
I mean, the most memorable thing was the sound effect that the train made. The growl.
Yes.
Like that's
Oh my
really
gosh.
all I think of.
The sound design of this movie was
Sound design is really
fantastic. Fantastic.
Did it not win an award? I think it won an award for sound.
I hope so.
It was nominated for an Oscar for Best Sound Editing at the Academy Awards, but it lost to Inception. That's fair.
I mean, if you're gonna
that's-
lose,
okay, if you're gonna lose.
Yeah,
to Inception.
Okay, fair enough.
And yeah, I mean, again, and there's some crazy stuff going on this, like the helicopter stuff, the guy rappelling down, and he does such a good job of like, it feels like the train's like right there. Like if I could just grab, but then I kind of put myself in that person's position and I'm like, yeah, but if you jump and you miss, you're dead because you're being run over by this giant train. It's not a maybe. It's you're dead. So
Not
I'm
just
like,
dead.
No, I'm not going to do it.
Not just dead, but probably spending 60 seconds in excruciating torment as your body taps out.
All right. Well, as I said, as we're rounding the final curve, we've been saying a lot of positives. Definitely not a perfect film, but an enjoyable movie that we finally came across our plates. So, Tristan, why don't you start us off with any final thoughts or your rating for Unstoppable?
I'm gonna be ridiculous here, and I'm giving this movie 5 stars. I genuinely love
Same as Man on Fire
movie. It's a completely different animal. You see, that's
Right.
the thing. Like
It's
Godfather
the
is
tiger.
5
We
star.
talked about that. It's just
Yes.
Well, no,
Rawr.
it's like Godfather is 5 stars. Toy Story 3 is 5 stars.
true. Very different movies.
But very different movies. Exactly. Unstoppable. When I was watching this, I was so enraptured by it. Like I watched it by myself, like in the basement, and I'm glad that I did because there were so many times when I reacted to it physically, where I like one time, like I grabbed my mouth, like, or like I said out loud, like, what?
Those
It's just
voices.
there's so many times I reacted to it, and I caught myself grinning like an idiot. And I know that this sounds ridiculous, but while I was watching it, I was like, man, this is cinema. Like this is man versus nature. This is just in your face storytelling of spectacle. It's so much fun. It's so great. There's so much. Is it a perfect movie? No, but enjoyment level is straight up there with 5. And apparently, this is one of, as we just talked about Inception, but this is one of Chris Nolan's favorite films. And if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me.
Well, by that rationale, that means that my love of the Fast and Furious franchise is completely justified. So thank you very much for that, Tristan Riddell. I appreciate
You
that.
can have that one, okay? You can have that.
I'm going to take
that
it.
TIFF is unstoppable. John, any final thoughts? Did this again enjoying for the first time, obviously, but where does this rank in as we round out Tony Scott?
Well, I have to say that I love the idea of the John Henry man versus machine. I'm stronger than the locomotive sort of thing. Cool. I think that there is some real craft, real art on display here. I think that everybody understood the assignment. If this were in the old channel surfing days and I was going through and I was like, I need something on while I'm doing something, I would stop here. I'd be like, yeah, Unstoppable. That's good. But I'm not landing on a 5. I am going to land at a 3.5.
What?
Because I enjoyed it. I thought everybody understood the assignment, but there was not the substance that I would normally enjoy. I'm not in the comparison game. I'm not in a justifying my rating because I liked another thing this much sort of game. I understand what you're saying with the 5, Tristan, but in the scale of how drawn am I to experience this again, a 5 means I'm drawn to it and I know I'm going to experience it again. A 3.5 is...
That's fair. Rewatchability is a factor.
I'd watch this again. Like if you threw this same slate of films against me and you're like, Deja Vu or Unstoppable? Unstoppable wins. Last Boy Scout or Unstoppable? Unstoppable wins. Beverly Hills Cop 2. Yeah, Unstoppable wins. But, just for comparison's sake, you throw True Romance or Crimson Tide up against it, and I'm like, yeah, that's a no-brainer for me. So 3.5 from me, which is I think a decent rating. And I wish I could have gotten 1 or 2 more films from Tony Scott selfishly, because I just think that this is a guy that, like I was saying earlier, he was incapable of phoning it in. This was just something he was always going to get it right. And so 3.5 for me, and God rest him.
Well, yeah, this movie, like I said, I've watched it several times. It is definitely rewatchable. Not that the ending changes or anything like that, but it just tells a good story. It builds, you got fun characters. I love Ned. He's just every time he's on screen, I'm just cracking up because he's just so funny. I will say, I don't know which makes me squirm more, the astronaut that has the chunk of space debris will go right through his head in gravity, or Chris Pine getting his foot like hole punched by a train. It's a bit, but no, I think I'm also going to give this a 5. It's just a lot of fun. It's well done. It does a good job of, you can tell it's being embellished. Like it's not, but that's not a bad thing. Because we all know real life can be interesting, but it also can be really boring. And we have interesting characters. Like, honestly, it made us all want to look up the actual story, which I think is a great tribute to anything that's inspired by that. It makes you want to look it up and be like, oh, what actually happened? The numbers are all 8s on the locomotive instead of 7s. I see what you did there. You changed it. But yeah, so... But no, it's been a great ride with Tony Scott. I think we're all sad that this was his last film, and we don't get to continue this house anymore. But maybe we'll circle around someday and pick up some of the other ones we skipped this time through. There's always more.
I think I'd like to do that. Yeah,
little pickup if we need some filler. All right. Well, as I said, we've just been ending the long house of Tony Scott. We've been doing this for several episodes since 1987, Beverly Hills Cop 2. But next week, we're going to go into the House of Zwick with Edward Zwick as we do another decade by decade play, starting with 1989, Glory. Also starring Denzel Washington.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.